If you want to get the audio from your synthesizer into your computer, into your DAW, you can't simply plug your synth into your computer. You need a so-called audio interface to make it possible to hear the sound. The audio interface itself won't record the synth, but it will make the audio signal available in our computer. On most synths, you will usually find a left and a right output that we need to plug in to the first input and into the second input of our audio interface. And if we would look at the back of the audio interface, you can find USB, MIDI, main outs and phones. I think phones is pretty clear, and the main outs are simply for connecting our speakers to the audio interface so we are able to hear something. And the audio interface is sending the signal from the synth with MIDI USB to our computer that we can hear it in our DAW. And there are two types of MIDI connections. First one is the MIDI over USB, and the second one is the older DIN MIDI that was used back in the old days with old vintage synths. And the difference between DIN MIDI and MIDI over USB is that MIDI over USB can send in both directions, and the DIN MIDI itself needs two connections for the input and for the output. And most modern day synths also have a USB connection that you can simply plug into your computer, but this path here won't send any audio. It will simply send MIDI data into your computer, so you can use your synth as a MIDI keyboard or send MIDI data from your MIDI keyboard out to the synthesizer. And for this one, we are using the USB connection. And if you want to have audio available, we need to use these connections here. But right now there is still no signal in our DAW because we have to enable the audio interface in our audio settings first. For this one, go into the settings of your DAW and search for something called audio or input audio or something like that. And here you can select your audio interface that's connected via USB, like we've done it before. And now it's possible for us to select the inputs from the audio interface in our mixer channel. So I've called this mixer channel synth mixer channel here, and usually at the top you can select the inputs from your interface. In this case it's analog 1 and analog 2 in. If you would check it out again, from the left into the first, from the right output into the second output, and we have both inputs here enabled. And now we can hear the signal that we are playing with the synth inside our DAW. And you will find multiple recording nodes. I prefer to use the external recording input only. This means it will record only the dry synth from the inputs of the interface, no effects or no changes when it comes to the volume or the panning. And the different recording modes are just saying at which step of the chain the DAW is actually recording. And I prefer to use the external input only because I want to work deconstructive. I don't want to print effects onto my audio file because afterwards I'm not able to take these effects away when there is something that I don't like. I'm still going to explain the other modes. For example, the external and mixer input. This will record the external input, like I said before, but also any mixer input. So if you've routed, for example, a sample onto the first mixer channel or a software synth, it would also record these additional inputs, but we only want the external input from our synth. We also have a recording mode called post effects. That means after all the effects we've placed here, you will also find post EQ. This is after it's been processed by the equalizer. Then we have level and panning. Pretty clear. It will record every change made to the volume or to the panning. And then we have post track. That means after the whole chain is processed. And because we want to have the full control over our synth, we also want to send MIDI data. MIDI data is not sending any audio, but rather MIDI notes. So if you are playing melodies with your MIDI keyboard or with your synth, we can send it into our synth or into our DAW or out of the DAW and out of the synth. So we are able to use our MIDI keyboard or the piano roll to control and send melodies to our synth, or from the synth itself into the DAW to use the synth as a MIDI keyboard. The first thing I like to set up and using the most is sending MIDI data from my DAW to the synth. For example, if I'm drawing in melodies in the piano roll, and for this one go back into the settings, but this time we are jumping into the MIDI settings and make sure that your synth is connected with MIDI over USB USB. You should now see it in the output section. Make sure to enable send master sync. This will cause the internal effects or the internal LFO of your synthesizer to link up with the project tempo of our DAW, and this can be pretty handy. The most important thing is to set the correct port. This means each synth you connect this way needs a different port to send the correct MIDI data. In this case, we are setting it to port 1. We will later need this. Right now, there is no MIDI data going out to the synth because we are not creating any MIDI data. For this one, we are loading the MIDI out plugin in FL Studio simply in the channel rack. And now if you click on the MIDI out plugin, it will open its interface. And here we want to set the port again to the number 1. And now the synth is communicating with the computer. So if we send MIDI data, the synth will actually reply to it and send it back into the audio input so we are able to hear what the synth is playing. You could now use your MIDI keyboard to play melodies on your synth. What we could also do, but that's something for a different video, to link them to knobs on our synth, to parameters on our synth. So if we would automate these knobs or would turn these knobs, we can, for example, change the cutoff or the oscillator frequency. But more on this in a different video. If we want to use our synth as a MIDI keyboard, we are going back into the MIDI settings, but not in the output section, but rather to the input section. And here you should also see your synth. If you connected it properly, make sure to enable it and set it to the same MIDI port. And now you can use your synth as a MIDI keyboard, but make sure to not send MIDI data from your synth to the MIDI out plugin, because then you would kind of create like a chain where the synth is triggering itself. It can sound kind of weird. Alright, let's explore the whole signal path again. We are going from the left and right audio output of the synth into the first and second audio input on the interface. The audio interface is connected via MIDI over USB to our computer to transfer the audio signal, and the synth is also connected via MIDI over USB to transmit MIDI in data and MIDI out data. In your DAW's audio settings, you are selecting your audio interface. We are then going to a mixer channel and make sure to select the correct inputs. This one is then going into different recording modes, and we want to record the external input only. If you want to send MIDI data out of your computer, first make sure that you've connected the MIDI over USB cable to your computer to be able to transmit data. Go back into the settings of your DAW. Now to the MIDI, make sure you can see your synth in the output section. Enable send master sync and set it to the correct port number. And remember, each synth needs a dedicated port. Select the MIDI out plugin in the channel rack to be able to send MIDI data. And in the MIDI out plugin itself, we are also going to set the correct port. Now you can send MIDI data to your synth, and if you want to send MIDI data from your synth, we are going back into the MIDI settings, but now into the input section, selecting our synth right here. Make sure to enable it and also set it to the correct port. And our chain looks like this, sending audio out from the synth into the inputs. From the audio interface, we are using MIDI USB to send audio signal into the DAW. And from the synth itself, we are using USB MIDI to send MIDI data. No audio, this one is just MIDI. If you are interested in buying your first synth, want to build your own synth studio, or are stuck with sound design, click the first link in the description to book a one-on-one coaching call with me. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.